Begin recording then.
Yes, go ahead and open us in prayer, and I will introduce our guest.
Yeah. Well, this is the January 2026 meeting of Province 4 and Province 5 Creation Care. And so let us begin with a word of prayer. The Lord be with you.
Also and also with you.
Bountiful God, you call us to labor with you in tending the earth. So where we lack love, open our hearts to the world. Where we waste, give us discipline to conserve. Where we neglect, awaken our minds and wills to insight and care. Where there is injustice, give us the clarity and the strength to speak the truth. May we, with all your creatures, honor and serve you in all things, for you live and reign with Christ, Redeemer of all, and with your Holy Spirit, one God now and forever. Amen.
Amen. So today, everyone, we welcome Chad Brinkman. He's the Director of Faith Fundraising at Episcopal Relief and Development, otherwise known as ERD. Today, Chad's going to talk to us about what it means to nurture and sustain in today's challenging climate. There's a toolkit for nurture and sustain. It's an action-based climate resilience. So, without further ado, Chad, thank you so much for being here, and we welcome you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I should tell you that one of my colleagues in our marketing and communications department created bookmarks for all of us that says "erd" is not a word. So, something fun that happens in our office sometimes. But nerd is a word in our office because we all are. So there you go. I'm going to share my screen with you real fast and then jump right in. So, hello. Thank you for having me. My name is Chad Brinkman. I'm the Director of Faith Fundraising at Episcopal Relief and Development. I have been with the organization for about 15 years, actually a little over 15 years at this point. I've served in a variety of capacities during that time, but I'm excited to be with you today to talk about nurture and sustain the action-based climate resilience toolkit that we've developed. So we'll get into that in just a second, though. I want to start off by talking a little bit about Episcopal Relief and Development, just briefly, just so you have a context of who I am, where I'm coming from, and the organization that is creating this resource for you. So here we go. As people of faith, we are called to create paths for communities to walk together towards the healing and reconciliation of the world, making creative connections to the issues of the day alongside dynamic invitations to work together, builds individual and community wellness and underscores the vital role of belonging. So today, we are going to examine Nurture and Sustain, a toolkit that offers ways to learn about climate resilience and care for the earth and to help combat climate change. We're also going to introduce the basics of asset-based community development, which will help us all to better observe ourselves, our systems, and how we interact with each other and with the world. We are hopefully, and we believe that by working together through prayer and action, we can gradually restore God's very good gift of creation, and in doing so, be better prepared for our future. So I do want to give you a brief introduction of Episcopal Relief and Development. We were founded in 1940. We are the compassionate response to human suffering on behalf of the Episcopal Church. Um, we partner with faith and community leaders around the world to advance lasting change in communities impacted by injustice, poverty, disaster, and climate change. In 2004, Episcopal Relief and Development collaborated with 82 local partners in 54 countries around the world to address injustice, poverty, disaster, and climate risks, and we reached 4.9 million people. Episcopal Relief and Development, we have four priority areas. We nurture early childhood development through our early childhood development program. We work to reduce violence against women and girls and provide opportunities for leadership to women throughout the communities we serve. We work to strengthen communities' climate resilience, investing in communities to strengthen resilience to climate change. And we also provide support in the wake of disasters. Our emphasis on shared learning ensures our support is purpose-driven, compassionate, effective, and respectful of the dignity of all human beings. Together, we strengthen local leadership and global connections. For each one of these programs, we define measurable objectives and establish key data points to track. With that information, we monitor and assess program effectiveness. We share results with our partners to evaluate success and identify areas for improvement. Holding ourselves to these standards has allowed us to provide effective care, even in highly challenging contexts, to more than 49 million people over the last 10 years. And while our work is integrated, meaning that each one of these priority areas influences and intersects with the others, today we're going to focus on climate work. So I hope you can see through just this piece of it that we have a wide breadth of programs that we work in, but we do work together with all of these. So each one of these things is integrated in some way. And we focus heavily on data. We call ourselves faith-based but data-driven. We want to make sure that the work that we do is grounded in real science, and that over time that we can see growth and improvement, and if we can't, that we can make the corrections that are needed to do that sort of thing. But today we do want to focus on climate resilience program. You may or may not know, today nearly 350 million people are endangered by not having access to adequate food, more than double that amount from 2019, which is an incredible growth in a very short amount of time in a bad way. Often those most at risk are isolated rural subsistence farming households far from basic support services. And we prioritize service for at-risk communities and at groups like that to create a more just society. Our work largely focuses on the marginalized communities within the areas that we serve. Episcopal Relief and Development focuses on strengthening rural livelihoods by creating economic stability, promoting sustainable agricultural practices, and collaborating on disaster response strategies. The thing that we've realized over time is that it's one thing to address the problem, right? To look at the world and see that the climate is changing, to know, for example, in places like Tanzania and Ghana, where we've had a rainy season of 6 to 9 months, we're now averaging 3. The kinds of changes that happen to an agricultural community when you don't have rain, but also what happens to the literal earth is very important. So a lot of the things that we're doing now is examining, okay, how is the ground changed because it's so dry? What happens when it rains now? How is the water moving over the ground? What kind of crops can we plant that's going to stay firm when basically you just have a flood happening over a dry plain, as opposed to in ground that is fertile and ready for growth? So it's really understanding how the earth, the physical place, is changing and how we can support it. But even more than that, understanding that in these communities where climate is truly affecting the livelihood, how can we begin to think about livelihood differently? What are some ways that we can create economic opportunities, that we can start new businesses, that we can have off-season programming that allow people to continue to thrive and nurture themselves to their full fulfillment when the physical earth has changed underneath them? Really, oftentimes, extreme weather events can lead to financial catastrophe. People who live through them, oftentimes food is in short supply and it's sold at high rates when it's found, making it difficult to afford. And those communities where people decide they want to leave, they're tired of experiencing these things over and over again. They move to a less vulnerable community only to find out that housing costs are high, there are few employment opportunities, or they have strained resources. So we're working to help people pay for the necessities that they have through things like savings and education groups, financial management training on starting and expanding small businesses, and partnerships that offer loans and options to help farmers mitigate financial risks. We're also promoting climate resilience agriculture practices, like I talked about earlier. We're looking at sustainable agriculture, land management, best practices, producing different kinds of products from crops. So how can the crops that are being used or grown be used differently than they have in the past? What are some additional things that you can use those crops for as well? Livelihood diversification that enables earning off season. This is a big one, right? Because when you have a rainy season that has gone away, and you have more time that you can't work the ground the way that you're used to, how can you support your family? So helping people not only grow things that can sustain them for longer periods of time or be more resistant to the kinds of experiences that people are having, what are some other ways that people can engage their community to support their families? We collaborate on disaster response strategies as well, because oftentimes disasters are sparking points for climate challenges, climate issues. We work to build long-term resilience to climate. We prepare for immediate response to disasters. So we're looking at what's happening in community, what are the risks if there is a big storm, say, or an earthquake or something like that, based on the current situation that people are living in. How can we mitigate those things, and how can we help them come up with a plan, having warning systems, identifying evacuation routes, and developing preparedness kits, that sort of thing. So it really is sort of looking at climate not just from the standpoint of there is climate change happening, and the world is different, the earth is different, but how can you look at the whole person, the whole community, to address resilience to those climate changes in the midst of everything that's going on? We do this through a process called asset-based community development. This methodology, known as asset-based community development, is an approach to working with and in communities that counteracts the prevailing focus on community needs and deficits. Asset-based community development says the community already has the majority of what it needs. The gifts of the people, the intelligence that they have, the knowledge that they bring, the earth, the stuff that's around them. We oftentimes realize that a community can identify its deficits before anything else. If you ask a community, go and you ask a group of people, tell us about your community, 9 times out of 10, we're going to hear all the things that are wrong. And so asset-based community development is about helping people to see all the things that are right, right? All the gifts that already exist. And then asking the question differently, not what's wrong with your community, but what do you dream about for your community? What is it how do you see your community thriving, living to its fullness? And then helping people to see that oftentimes the things that are already there, the gifts that are already present in community, are sufficient enough to help people realize the dreams for their community. And the stuff that's not there, maybe sometimes where they might need outside support, it's a very small amount. So if you think about it as a triangle, for example, the bottom 2/3 of the triangle are the community as it exists, with the people and the gifts that are present. And that top little bit of community, that maybe 10% or so, are the support that's needed outside of community to realize its full potential. But because we have trained ourselves oftentimes to see the deficit in the world around us, to see the deficit in our communities, we don't think about it that way. The problems become overwhelming. So this asset-based community development methodology is designed to, first of all, help connect communities to the gifts that are already present, and then to help them activate those gifts, right? And for us as an organization, it's about identifying partners within those communities who are part of the community, who have been there for years, who are actively members in faith, the faith life of the community and the active associations of the communities. And how can we activate those partnerships and strengthen the capacity of those partners to do work in community? So it's not us coming from the outside to save a community, quote unquote. It's us supporting community, building its own capacity to support itself. That's our programmatic philosophy. It's one that recognizes that genuine, sustainable change happens only when it comes from within an individual and within a community. This recognition motivates us to strategize in new ways that promotes healing, empowerment, and thriving community. And it's from this position that we work with our partners domestically and internationally, and from the perspective of which this nurture and sustain toolkit that we're going to talk about today was developed. It's about rewiring our brain, if you will, thinking about the world differently, thinking about our ministries differently, and looking to how we and our local context can do more than we realized we could do with the things that are already present. So to that end, I want to introduce you to the resource that we're here to talk about today, Nurture and Sustain. Um, Not only to engage more deeply in the work of Episcopal Relief and Development, but to utilize this methodology, asset-based community development, and this resource, Nurture and Sustain, to really hopefully see sustainable transformation in yourself, your family, and in your community. So I do want to talk about the toolkits. We've developed more than just Nurture and Sustain. We've developed a group of them. These toolkits we're calling Working Together for Lasting Change. They are designed to assist faith leaders across a variety of communities and congregations, campus ministries, different kinds of churches, retreat centers, and more. One of the goals of these two toolkits are to help relieve church leaders of the issue fatigue and overwhelming sense that sometimes people experience, right? Because of these great big challenges that are facing our world. We hope that using this resource, and that faith leaders will be guided through a straightforward and accessible program of campaign planning, prayer, worship, and local community engagement and outreach. We developed these toolkits with a desire to build more bridges between outreach, program, and worship staff and local communities. Again, issue fatigue is real. We recognize that faith leaders, in whatever context, can feel overwhelmed by the big issues facing the world. And in developing these resources, we interviewed several people. We wanted to find out what's going on, how are people feeling, what are the kinds of things that you feel like would be helpful to you, right? So we interviewed dozens of faith leaders in different contexts, and we asked them these questions. And the things that they came back to overwhelmingly were this: they didn't want to burden parishioners with more needs, right? People are already feeling overwhelmed about the things that are happening in the world. They were looking for faith-based, concise, and teachable resources with clearly defined goals. And they wanted something that was simple, with pathways for deeper engagement. In these conversations, people also told us there were a few things that the folks in their congregations especially were telling them over and over. These were topics that were coming up. One was peace of mind. People wanted to know that their prayers and their connections mattered. They wanted knowledge. They wanted information about that helped build confidence, that experts, the people who were doing the things that they were supposed to be doing, and that they could be a part of forging a path towards knowledge that works. People were talking about agency, the belief that their attention, awareness, and gifts really do make a difference. And relief. It's that you can't do everything, but you can do something, and that's okay. Which lifts the weight of what is broken by directing energy towards what can be repaired. It requires trust, it requires partnership, and it also, that relief of you can't solve the systemic problem necessarily, but the things that you can do can make a difference in your context, and sort of being okay with that. When we develop these toolkits, we develop them based on our priority areas. So we do have Joy and Wonder, which is focused on early childhood development, Grace, Justice, and Hope, which is focused on women and girls. We have Nurture and Sustain, which we're going to spend most of our time talking about today, which is focused on climate resilience. And we have Restore and Renew, which is a disaster response piece. It also has a disaster preparedness piece, which is interesting if you are looking for ways to help your congregation, community think about disaster response as well. So we are going to talk about Nurture and Sustain. This toolkit was designed to support expanding prayer and concern about creation care and climate resilience into knowledge, action, justice, and restoration. This toolkit is structured the same as the rest of them, so I'm going to show you that first before we dive into it. I know this is probably a little small on your screens, but I'll show you a bigger version in just a second. But I do want to show you that this toolkit is structured. Each one is the same way. There's an introductory section that explains why this is important, and why you should care about it. That section is followed by resources that help you measure not only the passion of the people around you about this particular issue, but how much of a priority they make it. and their capacity to support some action towards it, right? I'm sure we've all experienced at different times, maybe it's you, maybe it's someone in your community who cares really deeply about something. They get really excited about something that they want to do and they start, but there's no energy around it, right? Maybe they're the only ones who have a deep passion around this thing, or there's no sort of cohesive leadership around this idea. And so while people may be passionate around something or know something is important, they don't know how to start, or they don't have the energy around it to get it to grow. So part of what this section of the toolkit is helping you to determine, is there energy here? Is this something that our community cares about? And to what extent do people in our community want to engage? So it's helpful in that way, I think, because it begins to build um, a coalition, if you will, of folks, a cohort of people who are interested in addressing climate or looking at climate resilience within your community, and then gives you practical steps to help activate them. Following that section, we have a piece that talks a little bit about asset-based community development and gives you some sense of what that is, if that's something that you want to dive into deeper with your community. And then there's a section on worship. So different resources that you can incorporate into the worship of your faith community. There's a formation section that has practical resources around Christian formation that you can use in your context. There are a couple of different sections on outreach and engagement. So there's one that's on campus, so it's looking at your building and grounds, like your physical space. There's one on fellowship that is how your faith community can interact with one another, and also how your faith community can interact with the broader community around it. And then a section called Take Action Local and Global. And this is really focused on individuals and how individuals can engage. And then there is also a section on fundraising. My title is Director of Faith Fundraising, so I'd be remiss if I didn't at least mention that, we do encourage people to think about the work of Episcopal Relief and Development as you start thinking about global context, but we really do want to provide you with a good resource here as you begin to look locally as well and in your own context. So this table of contents shows the various sections I've just talked about. This is what you'll see in all of the toolkits. So it is sort of laid out so that one next to another, it'll have different resources within it, but the idea behind it is the same. Okay, so with that, I'm going to stop sharing for just a second, and I'm going to jump into the website, Episcopal Relief and Development website, so that you can see the resource. I'm going to walk through it, talk you through each one of these sections, and then there's going to be a time for you to ask questions as well. Okay, so let me jump over to that now. All right, so this is Episcopal Relief and Development's website. Our URL is episcopalrelief.org. It's pretty straightforward. I will say that this website is going to look this way through the end of the month, and we're getting a brand new website February 1st, which I cannot tell you how excited I am that we were getting this new website. But the URL is the same, and finding the resource will be similar. So for now, if you come to our website, and you can see there's lots of different information about the organization. But if you go all the way over to Church in Action, and you come down here to Faith Formation, right there at the top are the Working Together for Lasting Change toolkits. And that brings you to the toolkit homepage where you can see the 4 toolkits. If you click on Nurture and Sustain, it takes you to the landing page for that resource. You can engage with the resource in one of 2 ways here. You can click here and download the whole thing, which we're going to do in just a second. Or you can look, we have linkable, our clickable links broken down into the different subheader or headings, so that you can go, if you want to just find a very specific resource quickly, you can do that as well. But for today, I'm going to click this preview and download the complete toolkit. And I was playing with it earlier, so let me just get back to the top. There we are. So here you are. So this is it. For now, it is a printable, downloadable PDF. There are links within it, so I encourage you to use it that way. During 2026, one of the things we're doing is turning these 4 toolkits into a more interactive experience on the new website. So that's one of the reasons why I'm excited about it, where you can dive in a little deeper. There's going to be more information, videos, things like that. So you can really immerse yourself in what these different toolkits are talking about. But for now, this gives you a lot of great information. Um, and I'm going to do my best to just kind of run through this thing um, and hit the high points and then let you really explore it, but also ask some questions about it. So again, as we start off, as I mentioned earlier, um, the table of contents looks just like it did when I showed you a second ago. It is clickable as well. So if you're in the table of contents, you can click through this way. That way, if you see something you want to jump to, you can. Very simple to do so. It starts, like I said, with a welcome and introduction section that talks about the toolkit and then dives into a bigger introduction around climate resilience. It does talk about the work of Episcopal Relief and Development, but more broadly about climate resilience as well, and why we feel and why I'm sure all of you feel it's important for us to focus and spend time there. There's a strategy summary section here that really details the work of Episcopal Relief and Development. I've included this for 2 reasons. One, so that you understand the breadth of our work and kind of where we're coming from, but also because the kinds of actions that we are engaging in are the kinds of things that you can translate in different contexts. It really does show the importance of looking at baseline, understanding where you're starting from and where you want to go, and how you might do that, right? So this section is about that. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here because it's less about the local engagement, but it does have some really good information. Um, then we have what we're calling important reminders. I know that all of you, by nature of the fact that you're in this conversation today, care deeply about climate in whatever way, creation care, the earth that God has created for us, and our responsibility to that creation, right? Um, but I know that it can be a great fear for many people, including those, certainly for those who care deeply about it, but for those who are sort of looking around and feeling like it feels overwhelming. I hear that so often when we talk about climate resilience, our work with climate, people talking about the overwhelming nature of it, just the sheer magnitude of trying to shift the systemic things that have brought us to this point. And so, one of the things that we try to do with this toolkit is to make it small in some ways, to make the interactions step by step by step, um, so that it doesn't feel overwhelming, right? Do not fear, be at peace, pray, act, connect, walk in love, right? These are the things that we're reminding people to do. Um, yes, it's a big, important issue that has huge ramifications for us, for our children, for our children's children, for the earth that we live in. But we serve a great big God, and it's important for us to put that in context as well. After that section, there's an overview of the toolkit. It goes back through what each one of these sections is really about and gives you a little bit of a roadmap of how you can begin to walk through the toolkit as well and how you might utilize it in your context. So it's a good piece to sort of just really think, okay, what of this makes sense to me? If I want to use the whole thing, if I want to use a piece of it, what am I looking for? It's a good place to go and sort of get an overview before you jump into the meat of it, because the toolkit's 95 pages. It's a lot of information. This helps you sort of narrow down what it is you want to look at. And then, as I talked about earlier, I am going to highlight this section because I think it's important. I think the enemy so often of progress is the lack of energy around the things that people want to engage in. And the quickest way to kill something is to do something that has no energy around it. So, as we talked about at the conference at Proctor Center, change, right? Sometimes you have to be disruptive. Sometimes you have to create an environment where people see the necessity for change and that disruption of the status quo as being greater than the status quo, right? Or more important than. So, what this section does is it really talks you through how to begin building a coalition or building a cohort of people who care about this tool, this idea of your faith community, you as an individual or a family, even looking at climate change, looking at climate resilience, and how you can begin to make an investment in that in your context. It really calls you to sort of ask for people to make a commitment. I mean, we have a policy statement here, for heaven's sake. And the reason that we've gone this far is that we've discovered, and people have told us, that when people make a commitment to something that's in writing, that they can see that's tangible in some way, that they are more likely to engage in it, right? So this kind of talks you through how you can begin building that kind of commitment within your community. And then some of the things that you as a group will commit to doing, right? Um, for example, we're going to consider our personal impact on the environment and our daily lives. We're going to inventory our consumption as a community and make shifts to vendors and suppliers that prioritize environmental considerations, how they produce, source, package, transport, that kind of thing. So it really gives you some straightforward things. And of course, this can be tailored to your context, but it's a good starting place that says, we're going to make some real promises to one another that we're going to take steps that will make a difference in our community. And you're going to make that commitment together. We have a survey here that you can utilize or adjust as necessary that asks your community to give you feedback about how they feel about things, about what they would be interested in joining you on. I think it's really interesting, the parochial reports that came out this year, and I don't know if any of you take the time to look at them. I think they're really interesting every year, so I always try to look at them. But of the 6,000, almost 7,000 congregations in the Episcopal Church, one of the things that was highlighted in the parochial report that over 2,500 churches have self-identified as having some kind of a climate program or focus within their congregation, which is tremendous, and is definitely a much larger number than in the past, which tells me that there's a lot of energy across the Episcopal Church as a whole around this conversation around climate. And so I think what's cool about that is that because it's in the zeitgeist, because people are talking about it and seeing it, a solid third, more than a third, or about a third of the Episcopal Church is really engaging in this. I think that number is going to continue to grow. So I think it's a really interesting time for us to have these conversations within our faith communities. The next section here is worship. I really love this piece because I personally love when we incorporate conversations about creation within context of our services. And these are things, these are simple things, right? It's ways that you can start people thinking about, praying about, engaging with. So rogation days, blessing of a garden, outdoor guided meditation, Lectio Divina around nature, things like that. And then the year-round worship resources, that's sort of how do you incorporate into the liturgy this idea of creation care. One of my friends is Aimee Bostwick at Canuga, and we've been having a conversation about how you engage the church in the environment, right? She's a big proponent of getting people outside, and she said the biggest tragedy, the thing that we lost after COVID was like during COVID, so many churches were going outside and having church and worship services in nature. They were outside, they were surrounded by creation. And the thing that we lost is that focus when people went back inside. For so long during that time period, people were seeing creation as a part of faith because it was present, it was all around them. Um, and so I think this section sort of incorporates some of those things as well. The outdoor guided meditation, for example, how you can maybe have some intentional time outside where people are in creation in some way. Or if you are doing things like creating a garden or a pollinator garden or something like that, that you can engage your congregation or your faith community in these practices. And so, again, there's lots of stuff here in this worship piece that you can explore. The formation section here, it has a couple of pieces that were developed specifically for this. So we have a godly place story, uh, style story of creation that was developed specifically for this resource, some poetry and reflections. But then there's also some other resources that we're providing access to here um, around creation care and formation, thinking about creation that you can incorporate within your congregation. I'm going to highlight a couple of them for you because it does go through the godly place story. There's some other pieces that are available to you, but one that I really love and I want to highlight is this one. It's called the Let's Talk Conversation Cards. Um, this was a resource that was adapted. We developed this resource during COVID. We met with a lot of people and we said, "Hey, what's going on? How you doing? First of all, how are you surviving? How can we support you?" And we met with a group of teenagers. It was specifically the leadership group for EYE, the year that didn't happen because of COVID, the 2020 gathering. And we met with the leadership team, the youth leadership team, and they said, "Hey, what about you all? What are some things that we can do to support you?" And one of the youth said, I know my parents love me. I have no doubt that my parents love me, um, and that they care about me and that they do things to support me and they want the best for me. But I find it difficult sometimes to have conversations where I feel heard. And so with them, we developed this resource called the Let's Talk cards. Now, it's designed to be a multi-generational tool, right? It's an intergenerational tool. You can use it with your peers, but it's written up to be used with children and youth and adults. And what it does is it provides a structured conversation where an adult can ask a child or a youth or a friend a question. They get a chance to respond, and then there's a conversation piece for everyone. We've had so much positive feedback around this resource because it can be used in a number of different conversations. There's a number of different topics you can use to address things, but it gives everyone a chance to speak, to listen, and to be heard. And we've structured this one specifically for comments about climate change, heat and drought, rains and floods, economic and community resilience, sustainability and diversity in agriculture, trees, water, soil. I mean, there's lots of topics, what we can do. There's lots of things here that you can have a conversation on. And then we've given you some blanks to create your own. But what I really love about this is that it allows you to have some conversations with folks in a way that everyone gets a say, everyone gets a voice. And that's not always the case. And I think it's really important. And so I sort of love this resource personally. And I use it with my own son. I have a 9-year-old. And we've used this before because sometimes he says, "Hey, you're not listening." Like, "I'm sorry, I'm not listening. You're right. Let's do this together." Moving along, we got a couple more here and then we'll take some questions. We have the section called On Campus. This isn't about schools, it's about buildings and grounds. There are some tools here. And you see in each one of these we have in this section, you'll find these are some highlights, but it's by no means the full complement of things that are within this section. But, looking at the carbon footprint of the the community. looking at how you can engage in some climate smart, climate resilience activities that are positive for your congregation, for your community, in a way that says, okay, our building is important, our place is important, our land is important. How can we use it more intelligently? And how can we use it in a way that is more sustainable? And so that's what these resources are and on campus. Then you have the fellowship, earth friendly and green gathering piece. This is about the things that you can do. So you have a section about the space, and then you have a section about how could we engage our community in these things. And again, some of the highlights like being great neighbors, what does that mean? Zero waste living, um, eat, pray, walk, and the 5 R's of kitchen hospitality. So things that are easy to do that can engage your specific community and something that makes them think more intentionally about climate and how they utilize the things that they have and within the community that they have. And it also is really intentional about the church is a community, but the church is also part of a broader community. And I think sometimes that gets lost in translation as well. And so there's some really practical ways that you can begin reaching out to organizations within your community and potentially partner together. One of the things I'm hoping that you're recognizing in this toolkit is that there are very small things you can do, and there are very big things you can do. And some of the big things are how do we partner across organizations to support more sustainable and better climate resilience work. And sometimes it's what can I as an individual do? Um, and that leads us then to the take action local and global. This is really a section that's focused on things that a person can do, right? Or a family can do. Um, what I think this is important about this, I mean, there is a section here about becoming a ministry partner with Episcopal Relief and Development if you want to partner with us more intentionally. But then there's like 50 easy ways to care for creation. These are like 50 simple things like switching to LED light bulbs, stuff like that. But there is a section here that I want to highlight called Pick One Thing. Again, this was in a number of the conversations that we had with people. This idea came up over and over again. There's just too much to do. There's no way we can do it all. And so it was really about encouraging people to pick one thing, right? You can do one thing. And even that sometimes can be overwhelming. So this resource really is about creating a way for you to give people a chance to look at 3 areas. Look at pray, look at taking an action, and making a donation, right? And they can engage in one or all of these things. It's about you create a container. We've got slips of different action items that people can do and some simple instructions. You can use the ones that we've got or create your own, but it's a very simple thing. It's like, okay, pray. Well, here are a series of prayers. You print them out, you cut them up, you put them in a container. People can walk up and pull one out. And that's one thing that they can do, right? They can say this prayer, they can meditate on these words, and they can spend a week or however long thinking about this thing. The take action section of this, um, also, it's like just a series of simple things that you can do. Again, you can use the ones that are here, create your own, but it's one thing that people can do, and they're like, okay, this week I'm going to commit to this one thing. And it makes this sort of change that needs to take place between the habits of the past and the habits of the future that can seem overwhelming. We're focusing on one prayer, we're focusing on one action. It may not make a huge dent in the overall problem, but it begins to change people's minds and habits towards making better choices. And then finally, the donate piece, we've listed several agencies. Again, you can create your own that we think are doing good work in areas of creation care and climate resilience. That if people want to make that level of investment in some way, donate to organizations that are doing good work, both locally and internationally. Here are some that we suggest. You can come up with your own, as a way of making a commitment, a financial commitment to that work as well. Um, and then the last section, I'm just going to highlight for you again. If there are congregations like we are interested both in the local and the international. Episcopal Relief and Development focuses on the international. That's our job. That's our charter. We do work domestically around disaster relief. And then we try to do things like this to support local churches and the work that they want to do in their communities. But these are some ways that you can engage more deeply with the work of Episcopal Relief and Development. It's also really good basic fundraising best practices, types of things you can do if you're looking at doing fundraising for other things within your community. So in that way, I tried to create a section that not only allows you to sort of engage with us, but also take the principles and things that you learn here when you're looking at funding your own work as well. So that's the toolkit. I'm going to stop sharing. Again, there's a lot here. The things I would really want you to take away from this presentation today is that you can go as big or as small as it makes sense or people feel comfortable to do. The most important thing you can do is to build consensus around doing something and then giving people a chance to respond, in a way that is meaningful to them and to the community as a whole. And with that, I'm happy to take questions or have a conversation or what have you.
Thank you for that, Chad. I was not even aware of this thing until earlier, a month or two, actually. It's a significant piece. How long has it been around, did you say?
We launched this officially. It was mid-September, I guess. It was right around the time that we hadn't yet released them to the public at the conference. So the conference at Proctor Center was the first time that the public had seen them. We had done some beta testing, right? So there have been folks that have engaged with this resource, but we launched it officially, I think, end of September, beginning of October. And again, it's growing, it's organic. We're already adjusting some pieces as people have given us feedback, and we're going to continue to do that to just make it the best resource we hope to be able
Yeah.
to make it.
So very new. That excuses
Very new.
me.
It does.
Um, okay, so we have about 5 minutes. Questions on anyone's mind?
Chad, when y'all switch over to the new website, are the links going to remain the same?
So yes, well, what we're hoping to do is be able to forward the old links. There will be some restructuring, so I'm not sure if that's going to be an immediate thing. I know that we've already migrated over content, so these resources will be easy to find on the new website. So if you went to episcopalrelief.org after the website changes, it's not going to be hard to find them. But the goal is to be able to forward the existing resources, not things that we've done in the past and don't sort of have published anymore, but the existing resources to have those links. The other thing that we're going to do on our side is go through and make sure all the links are updated and working correctly. So we'll have a little bit of a time period where the website is live for us and live for everyone else. And one of the things we're doing is going through and checking every link and everything else so that the internal stuff will all work as well.
Okay, well, if we publicize this in newsletters, we probably should wait until the new one's live to attach links to our newsletters, right? That might be safest. Okay.
Ultimately, yes. Yeah, I think you could link to the toolkits now, and that link, the main link would work. If there were internal links, I would say wait.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Joe had a question.
Yeah, my question's about, I guess it's sort of what Layla just referred to there, publicizing this. Jerry's forgiven for not knowing about it. How about our bishops, our priests, our parishes? What are you doing to basically to advertise this or promote it or encourage
Sure.
its use? I mean,
We've
this
been
is good, but
having,
we're a small group.
absolutely. We're doing a lot of this, right? I mean, we are introducing this. So we meet with every new bishop that's elected. Um, we have ministry partners in almost every diocese and in several congregations. So I'm doing meetings with them. I've been meeting with Episcopal camps and conference ministries. I've met with young adult and campus ministers. I've met with Forma. I've met with the deacons. I've met with so it's really a lot of that. Young adult and campus ministries was a really interesting conversation because they're some of the folks that gave us the feedback about choose one thing, right? I have these kids for an hour once a week. What's the one thing I can encourage them to do? So that's how we're doing it. We had a press release when the new website launches. We're going to do an additional press push, but a lot of the promotion of these toolkits have been one-to-one, have been small groups, and we really want people to learn about it from people that they trust. So, like for example, in 2 weeks, I'm going to be at the Forma conference in Denver, presenting on the toolkits. So that's the way that we're doing it.
Thanks.
And then
Anne has her hand up.
Yeah, thank you. This looks beautiful, and I'm really encouraged that it's been developed. I guess from the perspective of someone who has led a creation care committee at the cathedral I'm a part of, one of my thoughts about some of the content you were showing me is that there's a lot of difference between a parish being committed at the green team level versus at the vestry level. And that a lot of the things that are mentioned in there would really require more like vestry level support and clear, rector support, and not just an enthusiastic green team on the ground working on like recycling or whatever. And so is there discussion within the tool about this aspect?
I mean, there's specifically some ways to engage vestry and to engage clergy, particularly, rectors or whoever's in charge of whatever area. And I think that's part of what the survey piece is about, the statement, the testament of, this is what we're going to do. It's about, okay, before you run, you have to walk. And sometimes starting small and saying, hey, can we take a survey of the congregation or the church or the parish or the mission or whatever about how they feel about these things, right? Which helps you sort of understand, the baseline, but also gives you some support, right? Like this many people are caring about this thing right now. Maybe we should put some more effort into it. Or can we start small? Can we do a forum or a Sunday focused on this where we have liturgy that's based on? So it's like the pieces that are in there are designed to sort of help you build consensus. Yeah.
Well, that's what I liked the worksheet or where you ask the questions, the survey. I was trying to think what it was called. I like that survey. I thought that is amazing because I've been thinking about how can I do something at church, my own church, because we have, like I said, we have one person that she's all for the recycling and we call her the recycling queen, but that's all she does. But there are people who want to do more things. And so I love that survey. I'm going to use that survey. And the other thing is I saw a lot of comparisons with the path. Did you see that, Steve? Did you see any of that? Some of the things that the toolkit is kind of like compares to the path that's being rolled out at Province 1. So that Rachel Field is doing. That is, and I love that. I love that absolutely, because it shows that we're all thinking, right? We're all thinking, all kind of doing the same thing. But did anybody notice that always the first thing to do is, I'm going to get really religious here, pray, then we act, right? So that's always the first thing that we're always asked to do. I love that part. So that was that's what I had to say about it. So, and I also use the Abundant Life garden series. I use
Yeah.
that in Sunday school, and we're going to use it as a vacation Bible school, and I've used it at church camp. So that is for the kids for day camp. So
Yeah. And that piece is going to get a refresh this year as well. So, yeah, I'm very excited about that.
so if
folks,
I have, sorry, so I
no,
have. So we are we've been asked by our camp, our commission, and at the Diocese of Great Lakes, our commission, Creation Care Commission, has been asked to do the family camp um, around Creation Care at Camp Chick this year. And so if we were to use part of this toolkit, it would be available for us to use. Like if I went to the meeting this week and said, hey, y'all go download this and let's look at this, that would be
Mhm.
available for me to do.
Absolutely. And I would say Abundant Life Garden Project is another resource to pull from there as well. It's listed
Okay.
in the toolkit, so you can access it
Mhm.
from that as well. But
Okay.
we've done a lot of work with Abundant Life Garden Project as well, specifically on engaging families and things like that. So,
Mhm. That was my thought, actually.
yeah.
So,
all right,
okay,
it's
thank
about
you.
5 minutes after the hour, so I'm going to have to press us on to whatever things there are to be done. Chad, if there's any desire in this group to give you feedback or provide feedback to the curriculum or to get more information or to ask questions, how do they do that?
Love it. Hope that you do. You can email me is the easiest way. I can drop my email into uh, the chat here, and then of course feel free to share it. Um, and I can type. That would be best if I could type. I don't know that I can. There you go. Um, I also can give you my work number, which you can either text or call. Um, Heather can attest that sometimes I'm not the quickest to respond on the phone, but I try to get back to you as quick as I can. Email is usually easier. But happy to answer any questions or receive feedback for sure.
And thanks. And one thing that struck me is recent, maybe as this is, the fact that ERD has done anything on climate change is a very positive sign that climate or the issues of ecology are a rising star in tech. So in the church, and even that's symbolically important. Um, anyway, so thanks for that. Thanks for the time you've given to this and
Yes, thank
learn.
you.
So
Thank you.
Chad, are you going to be at the BPG? Was that a
So
possibility?
I'm actually not, but two of my colleagues will be. My colleague Jenny Grant and Ian Chester are coming. So they'll be representing, and they're both fantastic, not only human beings, but just really knowledgeable. And they're excited to join you all. So they will be
So
there.
if any of us had more questions about this, we could also talk to them at the BPG.
100%. Yep.
Great, great. Thank you so much. Thank you
thank
again
you,
for
everyone.
being and joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.
And blessings, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much. Blessings to you all.